At the end of the topic, you will be able to list down the general characteristics of microorganisms, brief on the sporulation process of bacteria, diagram the multiplication of virus in bacteria, differentiate algae based on the presence and absence of chlorophyll, define protozoans based on its groups, discuss fungi as saprophytes, its benefits and damages. Microorganisms are generally single-celled organisms and are simple in structure. Cells contain protoplasm and genetic material, DNA or RNA. Microorganisms that do not have nucleus belong to prokaryotes, and those which have nucleus belong to eukaryotes. Microorganisms that cannot prepare their food are called heterotrophic organisms, and those that can prepare their food are called autotrophic organisms. Based on the complexity of their structure, there are 5 different types of microorganisms. They are viruses, bacteria, protozoans, algae, and fungi. Viruses are the smallest microorganisms which are simple in structure. They can be seen only with the electron microscope. Some are rod-shaped and some have head and tail. Viruses have an outer coat made of proteins that surrounds the genetic material. Viruses cannot prepare their food. They live inside the living cells of plants, animals, or other microorganisms like bacteria. The cell in which viruses live is called a host cell, and the organism is called host.
Based on their host, viruses are classified into 5 types: bacteriophage, phycophage, mycophage, zoophage, and phytophage.
Bacteria were first discovered by Leeuwenhoek in 1674. They are unicellular organisms. Cells are simple in structure and do not have nucleus and cell components. There is a cell membrane which is just below an outer tough coat. It is also called as plasma membrane. Fine thread-like structures called flagella help in swimming. The number of flagella varies for each type of bacteria. Flagella may be present at one end or both the ends or on the entire body surface. Bacteria have different shapes. Some are round-shaped called coccus, rod-shaped called bacillus, comma-shaped called vibrio, and spiral-shaped called spirillum. Some bacteria live in groups. Each group may have 2, 3, or a large number of bacteria. Such groups are called colonies. Bacteria are found in air, soil, water, in plants, in animals, and in man. They can live in extremely low temperature as well as high temperature. For example, some bacteria, like Thermococcus, can live in hot water lakes and springs where the temperature is 80 degrees Celsius. Bacteria live on the food materials present in their surroundings, such as dead and decaying plants and animals, in the body fluids and cells of other animals and plants. Have you ever thought why pond water appears green in color? Green color of pond water is due to the presence of algae and other water plants. Algae are generally found in water and in moist soil. There are 3 kinds of algae: blue-green algae, green algae, and brown algae. The blue-green algae are similar to the bacteria as they do not have a nucleus and other components in their cells. Cells of green algae and brown algae are similar to plant cells as they have a definite nucleus, tough cell wall, chloroplasts, and cell components. Protozoans are unicellular organisms. They are divided into 3 groups depending on how they move. One group of protozoans move by extending a tube-like structure called pseudopodium. Pseudo means false, podium means feet. The second group of protozoans moves with the help of cilia or flagella. Cilia are numerous short hair-like projections. The third group of protozoans do not move, but are attached to a rock or a plant in the water. Some live in water, soil, some in the bodies of other animals and cause diseases. Protozoans increase in number by dividing into 2 through a process called binary fission. When conditions are not favorable, they form spores or cysts. Some protozoans are parasites in man and in animals. Examples of parasitic protozoans are Entamoeba histolytica, which causes dysentery in man, and Plasmodium, which attacks blood cells and causes malarial fever. Fungi belong to the plant kingdom. They are found in water and in moist places like soil, decaying bodies of plants and animals, food materials like bread, pickles, and rotting fruits and vegetables. They are also found as parasites in the bodies of living plants and animals, causing diseases. There are several fungi whose structures are quite large and visible to the naked eye. Example, mushrooms. The microscopic fungi, except yeast, look like a group of fine threads. These threads are called hyphae. Each thread has several partitions which appear like cells, and each partition has several nuclei. Fungi do not have chlorophyll, and hence they cannot prepare their food. They absorb the required food material from their surroundings. Fungi feed on dead and decaying matter in the soil. They release certain enzymes on it. These enzymes digest the dead and decaying animal and plant materials and use as food source. Hence, they are also called as saprophytes. Fungi like slime molds grow on materials like clothes, paper, and wood. They release chemicals which digest the complex molecules like cellulose and convert them into simple molecules like glucose, thereby causing extensive damage. Fungi attack several plants and animals, causing diseases. By growing on dead and decaying plants and animals, fungi help to decompose the bodies and return the nutrients to earth. Yeast is very important in the manufacture of alcohol and alcoholic beverages. Some fungi, like Penicillium, are important for the production of antibiotics, like penicillin. In this topic, you have learnt microorganisms that cannot prepare their food are called heterotrophic organisms, and those that can prepare their food are called autotrophic organisms. Diseases like measles, chickenpox, mumps, polio, influenza, AIDS, and common cold are caused by different kinds of viruses. Bacteria have different shapes. Round-shaped are called coccus, rod-shaped called bacillus, comma-shaped called vibrio, and spiral-shaped are called spirillum. Protozoans multiply through a process called binary fission. When conditions are not favorable, they form spores or cysts. Fungi do not have chlorophyll, and hence they cannot prepare their food. They absorb the required food material from their surroundings. At the end of the topic, you will be able to discuss the beneficial aspects of microorganisms in food industry. Picture the task of microorganisms in nitrogen fixation. Explain the action of microorganisms in the preparation of alcoholic beverages. Research the role of microorganisms in cleaning environment and as a tool in the field of medicine. There are millions of different species of microorganisms on the earth. Most of them are completely harmless to humans, and some are actually very good for us. We use microorganisms to our advantage. Examples may include a fungus called penicillium to make antibiotics. Some microorganisms break down dead animals and plant materials to give manure. Some microorganisms that are present in the digestive system of animals and man helps in food digestion. Some are used to turn milk into yogurt, cheese and butter. Use of microorganisms has also increased in industries for the production of alcohol, drugs, vitamins, and a wide variety of products. Let us have a brief look on some of the ways in which microorganisms help us in our day-to-day life. Antibiotics are chemical substances produced by microorganisms that kill or inhibit the growth of other microorganisms. Antibiotics are used against infectious diseases. They are produced by bacteria such as Streptomyces and Bacillus and mold such as Penicillium. Alexander Fleming found that a fungus, Penicillium notatum, produces an antibiotic substance, penicillin, which has the capacity to kill bacteria. Some of the popular antibiotics are streptomycin, chloromycin, and erythromycin. Vaccines are substances that are obtained from microorganisms and are used to immunize against the particular disease. The microorganisms that are the cause of the disease are usually the ultimate source of vaccine. The word biotic is derived from the Greek word meaning life. Literally, antibiotics are anti-life. When antibiotics are taken, they wipe out almost all beneficial and harmful ones present in the body at the same time. Garlic is a natural antibiotic. It has medicinal use and health benefits. The research on garlic shows that it has antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal activity. The research also proves that it helps to prevent heart diseases and certain types of cancer, like stomach and colon cancers. About 80% of the planet's nitrogen exists as nitrogen gas, N2, which cannot be directly used by the plants. If nitrogen gas present in the atmosphere has to be used up by the plants, it must be converted into ammonia first and then to salts of nitrogen, namely nitrates and nitrites, which is required for plant growth, metabolic activity, and storage of food in the form of proteins. Only microorganisms like blue-green algae and certain kinds of bacteria are able to fix the nitrogen. The process of conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into salts of nitrogen is called nitrogen fixation. In this process, the nitrogen-fixing microorganisms like Azotobacter, a free-living bacteria present in the soil, convert the molecular inorganic nitrogen into organic compounds like amino acids and proteins. Some bacteria like Rhizobium leguminosarum, which lives in the root nodules of plants that belong to the bean family like beans, groundnut, and pea, gets protection and food from the plants and in turn help the bean family by supplying nitrogen in the form of nitrates. Bacteria and higher plants help each other for mutual benefit. Such a cooperative life is called symbiosis. The partners are called symbionts. In the agriculture field, farmers use fertilizers to increase the production of crops. It could be artificial fertilizer or natural fertilizer. Artificial fertilizers are chemical substances manufactured in factories and supplied to the farmers who add it to the crops. Natural fertilizers are produced in the field by the activity of soil microorganisms like bacteria. The dead matters are converted to simple inorganic substances by microorganisms. Fertilizers are produced from naturally occurring biological material, and hence these are called biofertilizers. Click on the link to know more. To prepare biofertilizers, farmers dig pits called compost pits and fill them with twigs, leaves, dung from cattle, and dried grass. The pit is covered with layers of soil. Enough water is sprinkled on the pit and it is left undisturbed for a few days. Microorganisms decompose and convert the plant parts to a fertilizer. This is also called manure. Later, manure is taken out of the pits and is used as fertilizer in the fields. Production of beer, wine, and other alcoholic beverages depends upon the fermentation of a variety of sugars and grains carried out by strains of different microorganisms like Saccharomyces and other yeasts. Fermentation is a kind of respiration carried out by yeast cells in the absence of oxygen. When oxygen is absent, yeast cells use sugars as a source of energy and convert sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Beers are products of microorganisms like Saccharomyces fermenting cereal grains like barley, wheat, and rice. Wine is made from fermented grape juice, but other types of fruit juice are also used. Alcoholic beverages are made by fermentation of sugar, cornstarch, barley, molasses, and grape juice by yeast cells. Brandy, whiskey, rum, vodka, and gin are referred to as distilled spirits. Their initial production resembles that of wine fermentation, but after fermentation, a process called distillation is carried out. Microorganisms help in changing the animal excreta into simple chemical substances. This is used as fertilizer or as manure in agriculture. During this process, combustible gases are also produced. This gas is collected and used as fuel and for street lighting. This gas is called biogas. Microorganisms are also used for decomposing the sewage wastes in towns and cities. When microorganisms are introduced in the decomposing and degrading waste materials, it speeds up the process and cleans the environment. It is called bioremediation. Curd is used as a part of food by a large number of people in our country. It is a fermented milk product. Curd is the product obtained from boiled milk which is soured by harmless bacteria called lactic acid bacteria. Fermentation is a process by which the microorganisms like bacteria break down the complex sugars into simple compounds like carbon dioxide and alcohol. It causes chemical change in foodstuff and converts the product from one food to another. Example, milk to curd. In houses, the milk is boiled, cooled, and small quantity of the lactic acid bacteria from the previous day's curd or buttermilk is added to it. It is kept overnight at room temperature. Curd is formed by the activity of lactic acid bacteria which bring milk proteins and fat globules together to form curd. Thus, milk is converted to curd. Butter is obtained by churning curd. The leftover liquid is buttermilk. Cheese is a product obtained from milk which is used as a part of diet. When certain microorganisms like lactic acid bacteria, LAB, are added to the milk, it coagulates the milk protein called casein and results in the formation of semi-solid substance that looks like curd. After the removal of moisture from this, It is used as cottage cheese or cream cheese. Cottage cheese can be processed further by removing the water content in it. They are then introduced with harmless bacteria or molds. This is called ripening or curing. During the ripening process, holes are made by large bubbles of gas produced by the microorganisms. Reasons for varieties of cheese and taste are due to the usage of different types of milk, cow, goat, and sheep, types of microorganisms used for ripening, temperatures and time periods used during the ripening process. In this topic, you have learnt fermentation is a process by which microorganisms like bacteria break down the complex sugars into simple compounds like carbon dioxide and alcohol. Fermentation causes chemical change in foodstuff and converts the product from one food to another. Example, milk to curd. Microorganisms like Azotobacter and Rhizobium fix the atmospheric nitrogen and make it available to the plants. Fertilizers are produced from naturally occurring biological material, and hence these are called biofertilizers. Antibiotics are chemical substances produced by microorganisms that kill or inhibit the growth of other microorganisms. When microorganisms are introduced in the decomposing and degrading waste materials, it speeds up the process and cleans the environment. It is called bioremediation.